Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. In a span of the last 10 days, the face of the Middle East has dramatically changed. The historic city of Damascus, ruled by the Assads for decades, surrendered almost without a fight. Not even the Syrian rebels led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, that was backed by Turkey, could have predicted that the Assad forces that had the backing of Iran and Russia would collapse so dramatically. Now, make no mistake about this. The Syrian civil war that began in 2011 had dragged on for 13 long years. From the very outset, the United States of America had been cheering on and arming and giving intelligence to the anti-Assad forces. Who can forget the famous, or rather the infamous, line of the then American President Barack Obama, who had said that Bashar al-Assad should go. The fact that Turkey was one of the lead backers of this uprising was not a secret. And just before the fall of Damascus, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan laid out his cards in the open. And now that Damascus has fallen, the obvious question that springs up is this: what kind of government will replace Bashar al-Assad? For the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is an outfit that even the United States of America considers to be a terror organization with close links to the Al-Qaeda. Will we again witness a redux of the so-called Islamic State that had sprung up to power between Iraq and Syria, as we did in the last decade? When the Americans had toppled Saddam Hussein in Iraq and Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, it resulted in the two nations plunging into years of chaos and bloodletting. So what fate now awaits the Syrians? Our next report gets you the details. The fall of Damascus will have long and deep reverberations across the Middle East. As the rebels rode into Damascus, almost without any resistance, what became clear is that Syria's fate had changed forever. Just a fortnight ago, this scene was impossible to imagine, and it all began on the 27th of November, on the very day that Israel had agreed for a ceasefire in Lebanon. And almost as a cue, the Turkish-backed Tahrir al-Sham began its lightning and spectacular offensive. In less than 48 hours, Syria's second-largest city, Aleppo, had fallen. The rebels tore down the statue of Basil, the brother of Bashar al-Assad, from atop a high horse. Similar such scenes were also witnessed in other cities captured by the rebel forces. In the city of Hama, that was captured by the rebels on the 5th of December, the rebels brought down the statue of Hafiz al-Assad, the father of the current ruler Bashar al-Assad, who himself had ruled over Syria as its president from 1971 till his death in the year 2000. But where is Bashar al-Assad? Preempting the fate that awaited him, Bashar al-Assad is reported to have fled from Damascus. Reuters has filed this graphic of a flight tracker that is widely believed to be of the plane that Bashar al-Assad boarded as he fled from Damascus. This video is from inside the Muhajirin presidential palace in Damascus. Bashar al-Assad's family portraits are said to be torn down. People also stormed the Al-Rawda palace, and some were seen carrying away the furniture that was used by Bashar al-Assad and his family. On Syrian state television, the rebels put out their first statement after seizing power.
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, by the grace of God Almighty, the city of Damascus has been liberated. The tyrant Bashar al-Assad has been toppled, and all the unjustly detained persons from the regime's prisons have been released. The Fateh Damascus Operations Room calls upon the Mujahideen brothers and citizens to preserve all the properties of the free Syrian state. Long live a free and independent Syria for all Syrians of all sects.
Russia, which had managed to turn the tide of the war in 2015, had carried out airstrikes on certain rebel positions, hampering their advance in the beginning of the lightning offensive. But lack of ground preparedness on part of the Syrian forces meant that neither Russia with its air power nor Iran through its militia groups in Iraq and Lebanon could come to Bashar al-Assad's rescue. Russia was also hampered by its preoccupation in the Ukrainian war theatre, where Joe Biden, in his days as the lame duck president, is climbing up the escalatory ladder with long-range missiles. The downfall of Bashar al-Assad is a loss of face for Russia. The future of its Mediterranean sea bases is unclear. For Iran, Assad's downfall is a crippling blow to its axis of resistance. But among the Syrian people who have the highest stake in this war, the reactions are mixed. Those who backed the rebels were out on the streets celebrating.
My name is Nathalie Homsi from Suleymaniya Street, The Villas. I am a mechanical engineer. For years we have been waiting for this day. We have been resisting. We have been enduring. We have been holding on. And we have been waiting for this day until the regime fell. And finally, the regime has fallen. From now on, the Syrian people are one. The Syrian people are one.
The leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham has said that the Prime Minister appointed by Bashar al-Assad, Mohammed Ghazi al-Jalali, will supervise the state institutions in the transition period.
I am here in my house. I have not left it and I do not intend to leave it except in a peaceful manner, so that I can ensure the continuity of the work of public institutions and state institutions and facilities, and ensure there will be security and reassurances to our fellow citizens. I hope that everyone will think rationally and think about their homeland and country.
The United States of America, which aided the rebels by carrying out airstrikes in places like Deir ez-Zor, has said that it will remain in Syria to protect its interests.
We will continue to consult closely with regional partners who are affected by this crisis to support their security needs. Our commitment to them remains stronger than ever. We will also continue to maintain our presence in eastern Syria, which is solely to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS and has nothing to do with other aspects of this conflict. We will continue to take the measures necessary to defend our forces and our partners and to prevent a resurgence of ISIS in eastern Syria.
A new Middle East is taking shape. From behind the scenes, Israel's position in the region has been strengthened. Erdogan, who backed the rebels, has gained more influence and leverage in Syria. The United States, which since the time of Barack Obama wanted Assad to go, has won a delayed victory.
I think that Assad is going to have to leave in order for the country to stop the bloodletting and for all the parties involved to be able to move forward in a non-sectarian.
Russia and Iran have been weakened in this new Middle East, but no one at this juncture can predict what fate awaits Syria with the fall of Damascus. Georgia, the South Caucasus nation of about 3.7 million people, has been plunged into chaos since the 28th of November after the governing Georgian Dream Party announced suspension of EU membership talks until 2028. The nightly demonstrations since then have been met with a very heavy-handed response from the authorities. More than 330 protesters have been arrested, with many allegedly being beaten in detention. Now, several opposition party headquarters have also been raided, and the opposition leaders have been arrested. Despite international condemnation, the Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze has refused to back down, accusing the protesters of spreading what he describes as liberal fascism. Our next report gets you more details.
The Georgian capital of Tbilisi has been in turmoil since the ruling Georgian Dream Party claimed victory in the disputed October 26th parliamentary election. The controversial election was widely viewed as a referendum on Georgia's European Union aspirations. Critics of the increasingly authoritarian government accuse it of turning its back on the West and of leading the country back into Russia's orbit. On the 28th of November, the Georgian Dream Party announced that it was suspending the country's bid to start talks on joining the European Union until 2028, triggering a fresh wave of protests. Several demonstrators, including journalists, have alleged being beaten after being detained by the security forces. Georgian journalist Guram Rogava, who accused the riot police of employing intimidatory tactics, was covering a protest live in Tbilisi early on the 29th of November, when he was targeted directly by the police.
I was told it was a miracle that I can move my hands and talk because the injuries I sustained at the place gave me almost zero chance of survival. I have covered many protests since 2002, and this time it was apparent that we, the journalists, were special targets. It was clear that they were deliberately attacking media representatives. This is the policy of Georgian Dream. The government is such a state that, for some reason, its survival instinct dictates the need to intimidate the media.
Georgian riot police have used water cannons and tear gas in a bid to disperse demonstrators, who threw fireworks at police officers and built barricades on Tbilisi's central boulevard. More than 100 people have been treated for injuries following violent clashes with riot police. Reportedly, after a strident briefing from Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze, authorities started going after opposition leaders. On Wednesday, 48-year-old Nika Gvaramia, a lawyer and media manager turned politician from one of 4 opposition groups, was detained by police in the capital Tbilisi after being knocked to the ground and falling unconscious. But Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze struck a defiant tone, calling the arrests of opposition figures and reported searches at the offices of various organizations as more prevention than repression.
I could not call it repression. It is more prevention than repression. Regarding the connection, it is a fact. One thing is confirmed: people were systematically supplied with pyrotechnics and other means by the relevant political forces. This is absolutely clear, and it lies in the palm of the hand.
In another major fallout, several ambassadors and the deputy foreign minister of Georgia have resigned over the decision to suspend European Union accession talks for 4 years. But Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze has refused to budge from his position, and has instead escalated the feud, with pro-EU opposition groups demanding a rerun of the disputed elections.
We will do everything necessary to completely eradicate liberal fascism in Georgia. This process has already begun. These recent developments mark the start of the end of liberal fascism in Georgia.
This kind of language is eerily reminiscent of what is used by the Kremlin in Russia to suppress dissent and targets its political opponents. Though Georgia's bid for European Union membership is enshrined in its constitution and supported by around 80% of the population, the tough stance adopted by the ruling Georgian Dream Party smacks of betrayal. One can only hope that these nights of protests culminate in a dawn of a bright new future for the enraged demonstrators.
On the 6th of December, Tehran successfully launched a satellite into orbit using its Simorgh rocket. Furthermore, the Islamic Republic claimed that the payload that weighed approximately about 300 kilograms was heavier than any of its previous successful launches. Though there has been no immediate independent confirmation of the launch success, the announcement comes as heightened tensions have gripped the Middle East over Israel's war in the Gaza Strip and a very fragile ceasefire in Lebanon. The United Nations and the Western powers are of the opinion that the potential military implications of Iran's space advancements is a cause for serious concern to them. Our next report gets you the details.
Iranian state media reported on Friday that the Simorgh, a satellite-carrying rocket, delivered an orbital propulsion system and 2 research devices to a 250-mile orbit above Earth. The launch took place at the Imam Khomeini spaceport in Semnan province, which is considered the hub of Iran's civilian space program. The orbital propulsion system, which allows Iran to adjust the satellite's orbit, is considered a significant step toward achieving geosynchronous satellite positioning, where satellites are placed in orbital periods that match the Earth's rotation. This was a long-standing goal for Tehran in achieving its space ambitions.
The feature of this launch is that it has higher capability than the previous launch. In the future, with the development and improvement that is being carried out on the satellite carrier Simorgh, this weight can be increased up to 500 kilograms.
In the past, the United States has criticized Iran's satellite launches, stating that they are in violation of United Nations Security Council resolutions. These resolutions, which expired last year in October, urged Tehran to refrain from activities involving ballistic missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Interestingly, the technology used in space launch vehicles, including Iran's Simorgh rocket, is similar to that required for intercontinental ballistic missiles or ICBMs. Both rely on advanced propulsion, guidance, and re-entry systems. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, though exhibiting a willingness to negotiate sanctions relief with Western powers, has not clarified his administration's strategy regarding space exploration. Additionally, since the collapse of the 2015 nuclear deal, Iran has reportedly enriched uranium close to weapons-grade levels. The International Atomic Energy Agency has repeatedly warned that Tehran possesses enough material for several nuclear weapons should it decide to produce them. Tehran has vehemently rejected these allegations and repeatedly asserted that its space and nuclear programs serve peaceful purposes. Notwithstanding the intentions with the claims of a successful space launch, Tehran has once again stirred up a hornet's nest.
The Mexican state of Sinaloa has been racked by violence ever since the 2 factions of the Sinaloa drug cartel declared war on each other almost about 3 months ago. Subsequently, more than 200 people have disappeared and scores of others have been murdered. The spike in murders and disappearances has taken some sheen of Mexico's first female head of the state, Claudia Sheinbaum's first few months in office. On the 4th of December, Sheinbaum, adopting a pretty tough stance, made tackling the violence in Sinaloa her topmost priority. She's also lauded the security forces for making Mexico's biggest fentanyl drug bust so far. And our next report gets you more details.
A wave of drug cartel-related violence has been sweeping across the Mexican state of Sinaloa for almost 3 months now. The feud erupted following the arrest of one of the world's most powerful drug lords, Ismael El Mayo Zambada, by US federal agents in El Paso, Texas in the month of July. Zambada's followers, known as Los Mayos, alleged that he was betrayed by the son of the infamous founder of the Sinaloa cartel, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, and have turned on members of his faction known as Los Chapitos. The bloody battle for the control of the Sinaloa cartel began in September, when as many as 144 intentional homicides were reported. The figure swelled to 188 in October and was 175 in the month of November. Sensing the urgency of the situation, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum dispatched her security chief to Sinaloa state in a bid to quell the violence.
There have been high-profile detentions in the state. People who caused violence were arrested. This will be resolved, but not overnight. It's a constant work for the Security Cabinet. There's an important deployment of the National Defense in Culiacan, and there's an important deployment of the Navy in Mazatlan.
Claudia Sheinbaum, who was sworn in as Mexico's first female head of state on 1st of October, had promised while campaigning to maintain the approach of her predecessor in office, who had avoided direct confrontations with the cartel. She had initially ruled out a more militaristic approach, but growing criticism within her own country and pressure from US President-elect Donald Trump has compelled her to adopt a zero-tolerance approach. Trump wants Mexico to do substantially more to curb the trafficking to the US of the synthetic opioid fentanyl. On Wednesday, President Sheinbaum was effusive in her praise for the security forces for making Mexico's biggest fentanyl bust to date.
This is an investigation that had been ongoing for some time, and yesterday it yielded these results. It is the largest seizure of fentanyl pills ever made. The consumption of a fentanyl addict over the course of a year is like a little packet of sugar. So this is the size of the doses used. So thinking about a ton of fentanyl, we're talking about more than 20 million doses.
Reportedly, the fentanyl pills seized at 2 properties in Sinaloa are worth $394 million. Interestingly, news of the massive fentanyl bust came just over a week after Trump threatened to impose 25% tariffs on goods coming from Mexico and Canada on day one of his presidency. Barely 2 months into her term, Mexican President Sheinbaum has delivered the first major blow to the drug cartel. The important question is, will she be able to bring an end to the intensifying violence in the state of Sinaloa?
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.